My fingers brushed against Marcus's hand when we both reached for the same small shovel. For a moment, neither of us moved. His hand was warm and rough from work, and it stayed lightly over mine as if he was waiting to see if I would pull away. I didn't. Instead, I looked up at him, feeling a strange warmth spread through my chest. The sun was low over the garden, turning everything gold, and for the first time in years, I felt noticed. Like that, Marcus said softly, guiding my hand deeper into the soil. You have to push a little when the ground feels stubborn. His voice was calm and steady, and his fingers rested over mine just long enough for my heart to start beating faster. On my other side, Diego knelt beside a young rose plant, studying the roots carefully. James stood behind me, leaning on a shovel with a relaxed smile. 3 men, 3 brothers. And somehow, in the quiet of my backyard, their presence felt safe instead of overwhelming. 6 months earlier, I had signed the final divorce papers from my husband, Richard. 15 years of marriage ended with a simple signature. Richard had controlled everything in our house: the money, the schedules, the decisions, even the garden outside our windows. That garden had been his pride. Every flower placed exactly where he wanted it, every bush trimmed perfectly. I wasn't allowed to touch it. "You'll ruin it," he would say. For years, I believed him. After he left, the garden slowly died. I stopped watering it. Weeds took over the paths, the roses dried out, and the grass turned yellow. Watching it fall apart had felt like a strange kind of revenge at first. But after months of staring at a dying yard, I realized something painful. The garden wasn't the only thing that had been neglected, so I called a few landscaping companies and asked for help. The Garcia brothers had been the last team to come by for a quote. 3 men in their early 30s, all strong, sun-tanned, and surprisingly kind. Their proposal had one line that stayed with me. "We don't just fix gardens, we teach people how to grow them." That was why I hired them. From the first day, things felt different. Marcus, the oldest, was calm and confident. He explained things slowly, showing me how to test soil and dig proper planting holes. Diego was gentle and patient. When I made mistakes, he just smiled and showed me how to fix them. James, the youngest, had tattoos on his arms and a playful sense of humor that made the long workdays feel lighter. The first time I told them I had never been allowed to garden before, they all went quiet. "Never?" Diego asked. I shook my head. James muttered something under his breath that made Marcus shoot him a look. Then Marcus simply handed me a pair of gloves. "Well," he said, "that changes today." At first I felt awkward. My hands were clumsy with the tools, and I kept apologizing when I did something wrong. "You don't need to apologize," Diego told me one afternoon as he helped me reposition a plant. His hand rested lightly on my shoulder as he guided me. "You're learning." No one had said that to me in a very long time. By the end of the first week, my hands were covered in dirt most days, and I loved it. The garden slowly started changing. Dead bushes disappeared. Fresh soil filled empty spaces. New plants waited in neat rows beside the patio. But something else was changing too. One afternoon, Marcus stood behind me to show me how to hold a small shovel properly. His arms reached around mine, guiding the movement. "Relax your grip," he said quietly near my ear. His chest brushed lightly against my back. The moment lasted only a few seconds, but it left my heart racing. Another day, Diego handed me a watering can, and our fingers touched for just a second longer than necessary. He smiled in a way that made my cheeks warm. James often worked beside me in silence, but sometimes he would gently tap my arm and say, "You're doing better every day." It was strange how those simple words meant so much. The 3 of them never pushed boundaries. They were respectful, careful. But I started noticing things. The way Marcus watched me when he thought I wasn't looking. The way Diego's knee brushed mine when we sat close together planning the garden layout. The way James would casually rest a hand on my shoulder when we laughed. Small touches, quiet moments. They made something inside me slowly wake up. One rainy afternoon, we couldn't work outside. Instead, we sat on the covered porch with warm coffee while rain tapped against the roof. The conversation turned personal without anyone planning it. "Can I ask something?" Diego said gently. I nodded. "Why did you stay with Richard so long?" The question should have hurt, but it didn't. "I thought that was normal," I said honestly. "My parents had the same kind of marriage. One person decided everything." Marcus leaned forward slightly. "That's not normal," he said quietly. "I know that now." Silence settled for a moment. Then James said something that made me laugh. "Well, whoever told you that you couldn't garden clearly never watched you work." The warmth in his voice felt real, and something in my chest loosened. As the weeks passed, the garden began to bloom again. So did my confidence. I started making decisions about what plants I wanted, what colors made me happy, what corners of the yard should stay wild and natural. The brothers encouraged every choice. "Your garden," Marcus reminded me often. One evening, while we planted rose bushes near the fence, Marcus's hands rested lightly over mine again as he showed me how to avoid the thorns. Our faces were closer than usual. I could feel his breath. For a moment, the world felt very quiet. "Marcus," I said softly. He looked into my eyes. "Yes? Are we imagining something between us?" He didn't pretend not to understand. "No," he said gently. At that moment, Diego and James walked closer, clearly aware of the conversation. Marcus glanced at them before speaking again. "All three of us feel it." I blinked in surprise. "All three?" James nodded with a half smile. "But we didn't want to make things complicated," he added. "You've been through a lot." I looked at the three of them standing there in the fading sunlight. Kind men, patient men, men who had spent weeks helping me believe in myself again. "I feel it too," I admitted. The words felt bold, but also freeing. No one rushed forward. No one pressured me. Instead, Marcus stepped closer slowly and reached for my hand. "If you ever want to explore that," he said softly, "it has to be your choice." Choice. That word meant everything now. A few days later, the moment finally came. We were finishing the last row of flowers near the patio. The air was warm, and the evening light painted the garden gold again. Marcus stood beside me explaining the spacing of the plants when I turned toward him. My heart beat loudly. Before I could overthink it, I leaned forward and kissed him. The kiss was gentle, warm, surprising. Marcus froze for half a second before his hand rested lightly on my waist. When we stepped apart, Diego and James were watching from across the yard. I laughed nervously. "Is that okay?" "Very okay," Diego said with a smile. That evening, we sat together on the patio long after the workday ended. No one rushed anything. We talked, laughed, and shared stories under the soft glow of outdoor lights. At some point, Diego reached for my hand across the table. I didn't pull away. Later, James wrapped an arm around my shoulders as we stood watching the garden. The closeness felt natural, comfortable. By the time Marcus gently kissed me again under the porch light, my heart felt full instead of afraid. That night, we simply stayed together, talking quietly, sharing warmth and soft laughter. For the first time in years, I felt wanted, not because someone controlled me, but because someone cared. Months passed. The garden flourished. Red roses climbed along the fence. Fresh vegetables filled the small beds near the kitchen window. Butterflies drifted over bright flowers I had chosen myself. And the three brothers kept visiting. Sometimes they helped with the garden. Sometimes we just shared dinner on the patio. Our connection grew slowly, naturally, built on trust and kindness. One afternoon, while we were planting new herbs, I noticed a car drive slowly past the house. Richard. He glanced toward the yard where the four of us were laughing over something James had said. Then he kept driving. I didn't feel anger. I didn't even feel sadness. I just returned to the soil in front of me, planting something new. Because the garden wasn't the only thing that had grown here. I had grown too. And for the first time in my life, the choices were finally mine.